All right, I call this July 12th meeting of the Planning Commission to order. Do we have any changes to the agenda? No changes, okay. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda as stated.
Do we have a second? All right, all in favor? And minutes. Any comments or questions on the minutes? All right, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? All right, and then on to the first item, the 2 new roads for York Prep Academy.
Good evening, Mary and Ray with York County Planning and Development. Our first one tonight is a preliminary plat. It's not working, it's not on, that'll help. Here we go. It's a preliminary plat for Kettle Song. The applicant is Land Design, care of Indigo Rush LLC and Pine Tech Holdings, and there are 3 tax parcel numbers for this. You will see it is a large, somewhat irregularly shaped piece of land. This is on Mount Holly Road, south of I-77, north of the county line. The golf course there to the left is Pine Tuck, and the developer is coming in to redevelop. And the first part of the redevelopment will be a new road. Tonight we're just looking at the road and the 2 road names of New Indigo Rush and Rattlebush Road. It is a long staff report, but I was trying to give you enough information to kind of understand what's going to be happening, even though we don't see it on the current preliminary plat. Fairly straightforward. New Indigo comes in off of Mount Holly with a cul-de-sac, a roundabout, and the only exit off the roundabout right now is Rattlebush, which ends in a temporary cul-de-sac to the south. We do have a proposed school coming in, York Preparatory Academy, YPA, and that'll be off of Rattlebush, south of the wetlands that you can kind of see in the middle where the road curves around. And then going through the findings here, again, since it's just a road, most of these findings are not applicable. So 1 and 2 are not applicable, it's just a road. I'm sorry, 1A and B are not applicable. 2 is not applicable, neither is 3. We didn't need a TIA because we don't have anything developing on it right now. Each development off of these roads will have their own TIAs. And this one is very accessible. New Indigo Street provides that roundabout, which could have additional exits off of it for future development. Rattlebush Road terminates in a temporary cul-de-sac to the south there. Those are meant to be added on to later. You could do a crossroad, you could do an intersection, you can continue on the road. And both roads do have 5-foot sidewalks along the length of both of them. Number 5 is not applicable, it's just a road. And then number 6, they did have a variance on Thursday last week through the Zoning Board of Appeals. The variance was deferred at this time. There was some question between staff and the applicants on trees and where they were, that kind of thing. So gave them another month to come to terms with staff, try to get everything to match up. So basically it's doing the math and getting everything done. So the proposed conditional of approval, it's not in your staff report, but given last week, approval of this preliminary plat for the proposed roads is conditional upon the approval of variant Z21-30V by the York County Zoning Board of Appeals. And that is the specific variance for the grand trees, which has been deferred until next month. Do we have any questions for staff?
Jeff?
Ladies first.
Okay, my first question is, since this was deferred by the ZBA, it sounds like, yeah, I know I was watching that pretty closely to see what was going to happen, to see if it was going to even come before us tonight. Feels kind of like we're jumping the gun on this coming before us. I know that this is part of a much larger plan, which the ZBA had the full plan. We don't. Right. There were a lot of issues with the tree counts going down and going up and all over the place. But one of the things, I guess, one of my questions is, it sounds like this is going to be annexed by Rock Hill probably in December. So, I don't know, it seems like why is it coming to the county to approve roads that aren't going to be in the county roads, they're going to be Rock Hill? Shouldn't this just,
They want to get started. They want to break ground as soon as possible, which is the other reason why we are here tonight. Given the deferment from last week into August, Planning Commission is before ZBA in August. So the first time they could come would be for September. So we decided to go ahead and if ZBA approves and Planning Commission has approved with the condition, they'd be able to break ground a little sooner.
That's a very similar concern that I had. I actually have the entire plat right here.
Yep.
And when I look at it, there's a number of concerns, that being one of them, because, you know, as the county planning commission, I think it's irresponsible of us
Okay.
to approve county roads that we will not be responsible for maintaining. We're approving it on behalf of someone else.
Right.
The other concern that I had, and I went through the ZBA documents. In the documentation for the Zoning Board of Appeals, I guess hearing last week, the trees are all over the place.
Yes.
And that really concerns me because when I look at it, we started off on March 31st was 0 grand trees. By May 24th, there were 56. By June 9th, there were 37. By June 18th, there were 19. By June 23rd, there were 25. And then when it went before the ZBA, there were 31. 39, excuse me. So either we have trees that are appearing and disappearing. We have a question of competence of doing math. There's an old adage, you know, it's Hanlon's razor, don't ascribe to malice that which can be assigned to ignorance or whatever. So maybe someone's ignorant of how they should be counting.
Yes.
And so I don't believe when I look at the plat and I look at where the road's going to be going, there appear to be other places that road could go.
Right. The site plan has not been approved.
Right, and I understand
Just a-
that.
Okay.
And that's the other thing is when I was looking at the site plan, it says in there specifically roads are to be proposed for acceptance into the York County roadway system. Obviously, that's not going to hold long. I mean, the other questions I had, and I don't know if the applicant is here or not.
They weren't able to make it. I think they assumed they weren't going to be on tonight's agenda. We did
Okay.
call them.
So we had that. And then I was looking through there and they mention in the packet a number of times that this access is going to be, you know, that it's, you know, there's a traffic issue with that, the odd intersection that's down the road. And we only have a snapshot in the packet we have, so we don't know what all the traffic is going to be coming. So if that intersection is such a concern, then I think we should have a more formal TIA to go along with it, because you can't say in one breath traffic is a concern, and so you have to cite this in this particular location, and in the back of the plan be planning the rest of the plot, which has traffic associated with it, and yet it not be a concern. So that was my other wish. And then a couple places where there were just inconsistencies. You know, and on page 7 of our documentation that we've got, the SCDOT, they've indicated that where this access is going to be, it was identified as a possible access point. But if you read on through the documentation, it's not defined as the only place that it can be.
Right. ZBA also had that concern.
Yeah, page 11, the location was subject to adjustment. And specifically, it says on page 11 that no other, let's see, make sure I get it right, no other locations have been reviewed
Correct.
for placement. Page 12, the developer specifically stated that they would not be able to move forward with moving it anywhere else because of the DOT comments. However, that goes in absolute, I guess, direct opposition to what the DOT themselves said,
Correct.
that the Phase 1B TIA was canceled and no comments were provided back to the developer. So I kind of go back to my earlier thing. The only thing that's consistent about this packet is the inconsistency.
I understand. We've been dealing on the staff level, trying to get the information that we need. It has been difficult trying to get that information, which is one of the reasons why the ZBA deferred.
Right.
But tonight, we are simply looking at the road and the road names.
Right.
May or may not be there.
Well, that's true, but I don't see how we, as the planning commission, could approve something with so many inconsistencies because
There's no planning.
the residents, yeah, exactly. And the residents of the county expect us to do our due diligence when it comes to this type of information. And to use an old Southernism, this is kind of like a ball of chewing gum at the barber shop. It's got hair all over it.
Oh,
Got the mental picture across, but there's just too many inconsistencies on
And approving a road into the county that's never going to be part of the county
Exactly.
system. It's,
I think
it's
that-
not going to be built before the annexation, so
right. They won't be able to
that's,
get utilities down for the school.
right. So it just seems like the cart ahead of the horse. Not quite as colorful
Well,
as your
yeah, not quite
chewing
as
gum.
color. But we're committing the city to maintenance on a road that they've not reviewed.
Right.
That's my concern as well. I mean, we would, not that it would ever go the other route, but I don't think the planning commission would like it if another entity did that to a county road.
I understand.
I have one question for you. And this is not necessarily dealing with the issues that the zoning board was dealing with, but at any time during all these submittals, have they submitted an alternative road layout?
No,
So it's basically been this same layout and they've just been updating information.
yes.
Any further questions of staff?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
This is just about the comprehensive plan. It says it's under rural residential.
Yes, ma'am.
And, so it's my understanding that in the future, it's gonna be a mixed-use area.
Right.
So mixed use to me means residential and commercial, is that correct?
I believe so. Their current site plan does show some commercial right around the new Indigo Road area.
Okay. So if the rural residential, it says here under the comprehensive plan, it's marked by low-density residential uses and agricultural homesteads separated by farm fields, pastures, and forest. Does this really fit into that description?
The only way they would be able to do the mixed-use residential is with, mixed-use commercial and residential is with utilities, which means they'd have to annex into Rock Hill to do that. So right now, we're just looking at the road with the possibility of the school coming in off of the road, and the school would stay in the county. It is not to be annexed for a few years.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
Okay. Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
if I could make a couple of comments on that
Yes.
one. As far as the school is concerned and location of it, it's a county project. It will be started in the county, not the city of Rock Hill. It may never get annexed. So you're looking at this as a project within York County. We have, right now, we have site plan for review for the project within the county. So you can't assume it's going to be annexed by the city of Rock Hill. It may not. If they can't get utilities there, it will not be annexed. It'll stay within the county and serviced by public or by private water and sewer. So the assumption about that is you just would not be part of your consideration. We're looking at these two roads and the location and the two road names.
Would they be able to move forward with the school without public utilities?
They could, yeah, they can do a septic system, they can do a well. They don't have to have utilities. They prefer that. It's not a requirement to have a school with public utilities. So that really isn't your consideration. This is a county project.
Okay, so I guess then let's just, one point further is, do we have to have these public roads here right now? Because they do have access off 901.
They meet the requirement of the ordinance. They've been approved location by SCDOT. So we feel as though we're recommending approval of these locations for these roads simply based upon that. The trees are a different issue, but that's not part of the consideration. If the trees come forward to the ZBA and they say no, then the road gets moved and we come back forward again at a different date with a different location. But if they say, yes, it's okay, then the trees go and the road gets built in this location. It meets the requirements of the ordinance.
And what about deferring until after the ZBA, since it looks like this was supposed to come to us after a ZBA decision? Initially.
That's your decision. We felt as though you have the right to, and you can defer it. However, we felt that by adding that condition, you can go ahead and approve that with that condition that they approve it. If they say no, then it goes no further. It's done.
Any further questions of staff? Do we have a motion?
Check.
Pardon?
I make a motion to deny.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Any further discussion?
Deny. And the only reason I say that is, to me, it seems like the data that we have has been so haphazardly put together. I really think the developer needs to go back and do better due diligence
All right.
on the placement of these roads, because it just seems like it's, the way staff has been able to get information has just been, it's been quite haphazardly done.
Well, contradictory
Yeah, it's,
information.
yeah.
Any further discussion? All right. All in, oh, yes,
Actually-
ma'am.
Is it fair to ask if that's how staff feels? Has it been difficult? Has it been pulling teeth?
I don't think staff can, yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion? All opposed to the motion? Okay. Excellent. On to item 2, the rezoning 21-11.
All right, this is rezoning 21-11. Applicant is Rita Presley. She's also the property owner. 1596 Oak Park Road in Rock Hill, tax map 536-0000-101. So the request is to rezone 13.71 acres from RD1 to RUD, and that is specifically to allow for horse boarding and grooming, in addition to her single-family residence and stables that she's planning to build. She's allowed by right to have her house and stables on the property because her property is larger than 5 acres, and RD1 allows that in that situation. The horseback riding lessons that she intends to do would also be a home occupation under the RD1 zoning. So this is strictly to allow her to have horse boarding and grooming. So here's a vicinity map. So the aerial, you'll notice that there are townhomes just to the north of the property, and 322, which is McConnell's Highway, and I forget, I think it's maybe Oak Park Road intersection is nearby. Not much to speak of as environmental, no constraints. The zoning, so the surrounding area is predominantly RD1. There's just a little corner there of our RUD1, but it's mostly RD1 with some RC1. So the request is to rezone to RUD, which is not even on the map. So the land use plan shows this as a single-family residential. There's some municipal info across McConnell's Highway, and City of Rock Hill is not too far away. So this is the proposed site plan. Parcel 2 is what we're looking at. The other 2 parcels are not involved in the rezoning. So you see there's a house, there's some stable, and then a pasture area. So we're recommending denial of this request, and we're strictly looking at the comprehensive plan and how the request is not going to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. So the future land use is single-family residential, and single-family residential is defined as predominantly neighborhoods of detached housing, rural suburban character of lots, and those are smaller than rural residential. So RUD is rural residential, so those lot requirements would be larger than what single-family residential would require. the density of development depends on utilities, topography, and environmental features. Now, this requested rezoning is not consistent with the comprehensive plan because it increases the minimum lot size. So it's going to increase it to a minimum of 1 acre, where we have a situation where there are public utilities available to the north, and there are no environmental constraints. So this property could be developed into a residential subdivision, and it makes sense that it would be because there's a retail center just down the road at the corner of McConnell's Highway and I think it's Heckle Boulevard. Right, okay, so this is just down the road from there. Talking about the consistency with the zoning, it's predominantly RD1 and RC1, which is typical for this urbanized area. RUD is not located in the vicinity and is not typically found in this part of the county. So we recommend denial of the rezoning, considering that she will still be able to have a single-family house. She'll still be able to do equestrian uses. She just won't be able to do boarding and grooming of horses. That's the main difference. So with that, any questions?
Yeah, I have, okay, so, and I'll admit I'm not knowledgeable in this. So she can have the house, she can have the stables, she can have a, I guess, paddock. So how would we know if she's gonna be boarding horses or not? If she did it by right, I'm just making the example because you're putting all those elements in there, and the only thing that's stopping it is, transaction.
And that could be something where, she's in an area where there could be a complaint, and code enforcement goes out there and investigates and finds it, or by some coincidence, she self-reports when she's doing something else. We catch it that way.
Is the applicant here?
Huh?
Is the applicant here?
No.
So, I guess, is there another route they could take to be able to do this other than rezoning the property?
Like Brian said, they can do everything but the boarding and grooming. So they can have the horses there, they can give lessons there if they want to, but the moment they go to the boarding and grooming, they have to get it rezoned. They cannot do that in RD1.
That's prohibited in RD1. Okay.
Yes.
So is there a limit to the number of horses? Because back to the gentleman's point, if I got 6 horses there, or 13 horses there, or 25 horses there, is there a limit to how many horses you can have? And, I'm pretty familiar with this area because my dog boards out there. So I know other animals are boarding out there and other people are working. So this person who owns 13 acres want to legally run a business that's allowed out there, part of the business, but the other part of the business is not. Am I understanding it properly?
Well, that's correct. I mean, and that's because of what the zoning is. But we're looking, the way we see it, it's more of a missed opportunity. We're close to townhomes. We're in an area where public utilities are available. This is something that would be a better use as a single-family subdivision.
So I'm going to ask this, and I'm truly not trying to be argumentative with you, but I'm going to ask it. Who thinks it's a better way for a private individual to use their property? Is this the government thinks this is a better way for someone to use their 13 acres?
It's the comprehensive plan, which is,
The government.
Essentially staff.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
We make changes and subject to constantly.
Thank you.
And I could understand a little more the objection if they were trying to recombine 6 lots into one 13-acre lot, but you're not taking any lots off the table by doing this. It's already just one lot. Yes, in the future, it could be subdivided, but if you go to RUD in the future, it can still be subdivided into 10, 11 lots. And quite frankly, when it comes to equestrian uses, the boarding is where you make your money. You don't make a lot of money on lessons and things like that. You make your money on the boarding, and it doesn't have, the boarding portion doesn't have as big an impact on your neighbors as lessons. Lessons, you're out there, you're jumping, you're making noise, there's a lot more going on. The boarding and grooming has much less impact on your neighbors than than the rest of it, so I have a problem with that.
And I know nothing about horses, so thank you for educating
You're
me.
welcome.
But I will ask, so the horses can be there during the day, they just can't spend the night? For this dumb lawyer, just
That's
make.
pretty much, yeah, that's
all right,
correct, pretty much.
Okay, so
Actually,
I know my position.
all of her horses can spend the night. She just can't have, like, say, I had a horse, but
There can't be a
I
horse
can't-
sleepover.
Yeah, you can't have a horse
horsey
sleepover, all right.
She could have 6 horses there where she keeps her horses and does
got
lessons.
you.
But as soon as I say, oh, I want to pay you $3,000 to have my horse there for the month, that can't
I got you,
happen.
I understand,
Okay,
thank you.
I have one additional question. I know a lot of times we see rezonings where the purpose is to increase the density they're allowed to. So with this, going from RD1 to RUD, they would be losing potential density.
Yes.
So this goes in the opposite direction of what we normally see.
And it's in an area where there are utilities that would allow that density
Yes.
in the current zoning.
So you were saying, the townhouses, but she can still put in her stables and still have as many horses as can fit on 13 acres.
Correct.
She just can't let somebody else's horses come.
And she doesn't have to worry about 50 more townhouses being built behind, the
Right.
people in the townhouse don't have to worry about 50 more townhouses being
Right.
built behind them.
Any further questions of staff? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve and allow this applicant to rezone to have her horse business as she has applied to have.
I second it.
Any further discussion?
Can I add a friendly thought? Just to protect the people in the townhomes from what would be a commercial business, that they just buffer that.
You can amend, I will amend it to add some type of buffer, and you're the engineer. Explain to us what that
Per the
buffer
code,
looks
yeah,
like,
just
yeah.
Whatever the,
Are you envisioning like a vegetative buffer?
yeah.
Okay.
But I think we would have to be somewhat specific if we're going to
I don't
amend
see
it.
how that gained anything, because.
If it's already
says
per the code.
Things that create noise are there already, and what she's proposing to do that she can't do right now will have no negative impact as far as noise and interrupting the neighborhood, so I don't see why we need to force her to spend money building a buffer.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve as written. We have a second. Still any further discussion? No. All right, all in favor? Thank you. Then on to item 3, rezoning 21-12.
All right, this is 21-12, Lake Point Academy is the applicant. Carolina Crossing Drive in York, and there are 5 parcels involved. So the request is to rezone, it's a total of 16.278 acres from BD1, RUD1, and AGC1 to RC1 for the reuse of those existing buildings into a private K through 12 school. So Lake Point Academy is currently in Lake Wiley. They're going to be relocating to this property. It's kind of an expansion, more property to deal with. So there are 5 parcels to be rezoned. One of them has a former golf club. One of them has a former YMCA. One has a field area, and 2 parcels are undeveloped residential lots for the adjacent subdivision. So this is the vicinity map, and the aerial helps with that. So the YMCA is this northeast corner. The golf club is kind of diagonal from there. The largest parcel is the old golf course and club. The 2 residential parcels are closer to the residential houses, and then the field is beside the old YMCA. not much there. As far as zoning goes, so the current surrounding neighborhood is RED1, so that would be rezoned to RC1. So there's a minimal lot size difference. It's 1 acre versus 40,000 square feet, so it doesn't really make a difference. There is BD1 at that corner, and we're looking to have that rezoned to limit what could go there. I mean, these days it could be a convenience center or gas station, something like that. So if we were to remove that, it could become, something more residential or, institutional in nature. The larger parcel where the old golf course is AGC1, so that's going to be, they request to rezone to RC1. So that would significantly reduce the minimum lot size, not that they would use that for that purpose. Future land use is single-family residential, so that would be consistent with the rezoning to RC1. Here's the proposed site plan. See, the parking lot is being modified a little bit, and we're going to get into this a little bit, the location of the crosswalk. As you see, there's a crosswalk connecting both sides of the campus, and we're going to be asking for a condition to make that safe. So some site pictures, kind of get an idea of the character of the area. Got the YMCA, the clubhouse, the fields, the parking lot. The neighborhood entrance, that's the first picture. The second picture is if you're coming into the neighborhood where the crosswalk is proposed to be. The third picture is looking from the other direction as if you were a resident coming out of the neighborhood to an area to where the crosswalk would be. And then the last picture is just a typical residential street. So comprehensive plan, it's supportive of this request. So like I said before, the minimum lot size is changing slightly. Single-family residential, that is consistent with the area. Whether or not a school is built, that rezoning would be consistent with the area. And it would eliminate the BD1 zoning that could cause conflicts in the residential neighborhood. So 2 conditions. I want to make a note here. In your staff report, there was only 1 condition. The second condition has been added just today, related to traffic counts. So the first condition is talking about traffic calming measures, such as speed table, crosswalk, raised crosswalk, must be provided along Carolina Crossing Drive between the schools. It doesn't say where, it just says, something needs to be provided. And we didn't say specifically because it's a little bit premature to know exactly where and what could be allowed at that location. And then a Tier 2 TIA should be completed and implemented if the school discontinues their alternating schedule. That's where, so many grades attend on one day and so many grades attend on another day. So if they were to all come in at the same time, that's going to cause a traffic issue. Or if the school's total attendance grows to more than 250 students. So both of those, or either of those, will be a trigger for a Tier 2 TIA, which would probably require some kind of mitigation at that point. So those are the 2 conditions, and we want to see what your thoughts are.
Can I ask just where did the 250 number come from?
The 250, the AM peaks hits 100 peak hours, and that in our ordinance requires a Tier 2.
Okay.
You said a Tier 1 was done, but I don't see any of that information in the packet.
There was no mitigation required. So if we just give us a basic statement in the actual staff report, but we don't include Tier 1s in your packet.
Okay. I guess my concern is the parking on one side and the school on the other with, people crossing That, I don't know, just a speed table doesn't seem like, or crosswalk signage, I don't know, it doesn't seem like that would mitigate.
It can be done, I've seen it done pretty successfully. Actually, if you go to Anderson, they have right in Anderson University, they have a series of dorms on one side of the road and the main campus, and there is a crosswalk there that gets a significant amount of traffic. And so they have signage with strobes, and it detects when the students are coming, and I don't want to say strobes, but it flashes and alerts drivers when kids are crossing back and forth. So I saw you nodding your head, so you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I believe actually TKK did a study, and I think they're actually trying to implement something like that, where you walk up and lights flash to alert the drivers.
Yeah. So if you're driving and there's nobody, there's a crosswalk coming, but you don't, but when there's kids coming, like it really does light up too.
But my concern is with the traffic in the morning, especially people coming out of that neighborhood. Now you've got a bunch of people crossing there all the time. You're gonna have,
Yes.
if it was on the same side of the road, I don't see it as much of an issue. An afternoon, I don't see it as much of an issue, but the morning rush hour, you've got a neighborhood back there. They're gonna be backing up as kids are crossing, and it's a safety issue as well as a traffic issue at that point for that neighborhood.
Well, that's correct. And from what I've seen in Anderson, it seems to work well. That is the road that it's on is a heavily traveled road.
Is the applicant here? I see a nod.
And would they entertain the idea of a bridge across the road?
Did you have questions for the
I
applicant?
did. The question would be, when I
Oh,
look
hang
at.
on, hang on. If you would step up, state your name and address for
Sorry
the
about
record,
that.
please. That's okay. Jumping the gun. Yes, if you would both state your names and addresses for the record, please.
Good evening, I'm Ken Rogers. Thank you for having us.
Christopher Wood, Joel Wood and Associates. I'm a civil engineer for him.
Okay. And your addresses, please?
I'm sorry?
Address? You have to state your name
my-
and address for the record.
My address, I'm Ken Rogers. I live at 2398 Gordon Road, Rock Hill, South Carolina, 29732.
Okay.
Chris Wood, 484 Old Limestone Road, West York.
Thank you.
And the question I had, since we're talking about traffic issue, is, because I'm familiar with this property back when it was a golf course and also when it was the Y. Do you have a plan for all the kids being dropped off at one location in the morning? And I'm thinking about that morning traffic situation that was brought up. Are they all going to be dropped off at the old golf building? Because I know that the YMCA building, pretty much all there is a gym and a pool.
If we can look at either of the screens, and Mr. Wood will speak up if I get out of turn or if I get out of explanation, you can see a turning or a drive-through or driveway.
Okay.
It looks like an inverted P.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the driveway for the school. Anyone that doesn't drive will be dropped off at the school through that driveway. Students that drive, in our case, are typically 11th or 12th graders, which are relatively few of them compared to the balance of our student body. But they would be the students that would be parking across the street. So you'd have 16, 17, 18-year-olds coming to that crosswalk and then traversing across the school. It's the school's intention and plan not only to have it, we welcome the county's administrative recommendation staff, but Lewis Lemon is our headmaster, and it's one of his beliefs as headmaster, and the board has agreed that we would have a human adult there in the mornings and the afternoons to make certain that the issue of the rezoning board here is addressed, and so that it is a safe crosswalk,
Okay.
particularly in that peak morning time and that afternoon, which isn't a peak time, but
Right.
we'd have more students crossing at that time.
We're still looking at separating.
It's actually, and for clarity, the school facility is the YMCA.
Okay.
The Cotton Hall is not an academic facility at this point. It
Okay.
potentially could be an overflow. We could have classrooms or administrative, we will have offices over there, it'll be used for student life on a Friday afternoon. And if I can briefly explain our school week, is those young adults, 7th grade through 12th grade, attend school on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. students in K-5 through 6th grade attend on Tuesday and Thursday. Many of y'all, if you have children or grandchildren, probably experienced this over COVID-19, where they stayed home and did homework, and then they went to school the next day and then come home. Well, we've been doing that for more than 15 years. And so the number, when you think about 250 students, the number of students on a day, on our busiest day, if you will, this year, appears to be 110, 120 students in our secondary. If Mr. Lemon was up here, he could give you the most recent count on enrollment. And then far less in our primary. So we're not at a 250 level, and the gentleman spoke clearly to that, on a daily basis, but rather in an aggregate enrollment. And so the students in the elementary school, they get dropped off there, and then a number of the students who drive will be parking across the street.
Okay. And that got to what I was trying to get at, is where are the kids going to be? And it appears they're all going to be on the YMCA side, and the only kids that will be crossing will be high school age,
That's correct.
or it'll be smaller kids accompanied by high school age.
If, in fact, if the ruling on our school board has agreed that what they would do is if they ride with a student, which some students do, they ride with their older sibling, they will go through the P. And then that younger child or young adult will be dropped off at the school, and the older one will cross over, they will park, and they will walk across the school. That's our policy.
And we looked at the alternating layouts for the parking lot, and then balancing, trying to meet, some of the requests of the homeowners association. They prefer not to add any more parking lots, thus using the Cotton Hall parking lot for the high school students and the drop off, and the parking lot on the YMCA side generally accommodates the needs of staff and an elementary school requirements for a building that size. The high school age requirements for parking is where the 90 plus parking spaces requirements comes into play at the Cotton Hall. But trying to balance the request and needs of both is kind of what we were trying to balance.
And that was gonna be my point. What I wanted to ask, I guess you guys have been working in concert with the homeowners association of this particular place?
We've met with the board of the homeowners association at least 3 times. I believe they were there for the general meeting as well. Thankfully, the board invited us to come to the neighborhood. They put out an email not only to the homeowner association there off of Iron Club and beyond, but also to the neighbors across behind the Cotton Hall. Welcomed all the folks to come. We probably had, my guess, I didn't do a count. Did y'all do a count? 40-ish homeowners represented there, and turnout was great. At the meeting, there was there were good questions, great questions. One was, and I need to talk to the school system about it, is where does they have a pickup there? We need to find the right place for the school pickup. That was a great question that came out of that meeting. A number of other questions, but out of the meeting, the president of the homeowners association followed up to let us know it went very well. And so we're very thankful. We don't believe the homeowner association at this point has chosen not to take a position with rezoning. That's my understanding. We sent a letter, we asked for the response, we did, and that was the response we got.
And the YMCA did have some specific rights relative to the homeowners association's covenants to a parking lot and soccer field on that side of the facility, because they own the 4 parcels on that side.
And the school, Lake Point Academy, has agreed, and I mean, one of the concerns, as you can imagine looking at that picture, you can't see the house, but see where the dark green in the field behind the YMCA turns into probably a little more dirt than grass. That particular lot now has a house on it. That's owned by the Richmond family, and the Richmonds had a concern, as well as some others over there, about the soccer fields that the YMCA had a right to, and we believe homeowners association, others, and YMCA are the folks said those could convey. We understood that to begin with, and then, but we agreed as a group. The school has talked to the owners of the property you see across from the YMCA, and the school has agreed to move our soccer fields there, Lord willing, if that works out. We don't have a purchase agreement yet, but we're open to that. and also the entree of moving the parking lot across the street versus having a large amount of asphalt and lights sitting there in that green space. So our goal, not just in doing buildings, but academically, from a curriculum perspective, values, is to be a good neighbor. That's what we desire to do, and that's what we're after. That's why we tried to meet with them a number of times and have done so.
I know you said you didn't have the exact number, but approximately how many students do you have right now?
We do have an exact number.
Okay. So you're approaching that 250, so if you expand, then
No,
I guess they would have to.
It can fluctuate. We've never, we usually never have any more than 200. It can go down, as you can imagine, with our structure of schooling. I doubt anyone in this room at the University Model School is fairly unique. And so we receive from a lot of folks in York County, some folks out of Gaston, some folks out of Chester.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but say Monday, Wednesday, and Friday is secondary.
That's correct.
And Tuesday, Thursday is primary, so those 200 odd students are split roughly 100 Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 100 Tuesday, Thursday.
On average, historically.
So then you would basically have the crossing utilize more 3 days a week,
That's right.
not all 5 days.
Correct.
Any further questions of the applicant? All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Any further questions of staff? All right, do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve with staff recommendations as noted.
With both of the conditions?
Yes, both conditions.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you. Leaves us to rezoning 21-13.
Okay, the rezoning 2113, Darby Reynolds LLC is the applicant and the owner. This is on Corwin Drive in Oak Ridge Meadows Court in Rock Hill, 3 tax parcels. So the request is to rezone a total of 3.67 acres from RC2 to RD2 for the recombination and subdivision of 3 existing parcels with 8 single-family homes into 8 single-family lots, 1 per home, each with 10,000 square feet of land. Well, minimum 10,000 square feet of land. So we have a situation where there are 8 houses on 3 parcels of land. That's what we're dealing with right now. And they're going to break it down so that each house has its own piece of land. So the existing homes that were built before the adoption of zoning, and they're between 800 and 1,200 square feet in size. So Vicinity Map, this is near a center. Aerial map, you see there's some self-storage just south of there in the designated center. You can see the houses are all kind of, and they all front these 2 roads here, but they're not all on their own parcels. Not much to speak of here. So the zoning, it's predominantly RC2 for this area. So the current zoning is really consistent, but it's not favorable to the request. RD2, if you look at the map, it's not even in the map, but it's what's necessary in order to correct this nonconformity. There is some RD1 in the vicinity, but the RD2 is not. So the land use, so rural center is the is on top of single-family residential. So the single-family residential is more consistent with this request. Rural center really is geared more towards the self-storage at that intersection. So this would really not be a rural center kind of use. It would really be more residential as it's more on the edge. So this is the proposed site plan. You'll see that there are 8 parcels, 1 for each house. The well and septic are supposedly on each property. There was an expert that came out and assessed that. So the comprehensive plan, as I mentioned before, it's rural center overlaying on top of single-family residential. The area is, you have some residential, you have some commercial in the area as well. Lots smaller than rural residential is the primary component of single-family residential. So the requested rezoning does not align with the recommended future land use designations. However, the RD2 zoning would correct a nonconformity with all these houses being built on 3 different properties. So we're recommending approval of the request subject to a zoning condition, which is stated here, saying that they're going to have to conform what they've submitted, so they could not tear down all the houses and build some kind of apartments or townhomes or something that's just inconsistent with that area, but that's allowed by zoning. So that's our way of allowing that smaller lot size, but not allowing those uses that are inconsistent. So, any questions?
Sounds like these were built before the zoning came in. The zoning came in over the top of them, which makes them non-conforming, so it doesn't really
But
feel
none
like
of
we
the
should have a,
zonings- None of the zonings would allow 5 houses on 1 parcel.
right, but that was before the zoning. So the zoning came in and, I mean,
Yeah.
I wish when the zoning came in, they looked at what was already there so that it conformed to what was already there. Because
don't know
now
how
these
they
people
could
have to
fix
come
it.
back before us.
Yeah.
So, anyway, any questions for staff?
Just a quick question. So if this wasn't done, could they sell those homes? I mean, because they're not on their own parcels, correct? You'd have to sell it as one lot with multiple homes, correct?
Well, I mean, they could try to subdivide based on the current RC2 zoning, but they wouldn't be able to do it for every single house. They'd have to tear down a couple of those houses to make those minimum lot sizes work.
I guess the question was, there's 8 houses, right? And you want to, like, if somebody wanted to sell one of the 8 right now, they couldn't do that.
Well, they could subdivide it, as long as it met that minimum lot size for RC2, they could do it.
But it wouldn't meet the minimum lot size, so they're kind
Well,
of
some of
stuck.
them could, some of them couldn't. It just depends on the location of the house, relative to the
Right.
others.
So when there's 5 houses on one lot, who owns it? I guess,
Yeah, I mean, looking at this, some
I'm
of
just,
those parcels are
it's,
bigger
I mean,
than
it's,
others.
I'm not trying to argue about it. I'm just curious, because
These are rental properties.
the rental,
These are
okay,
rental
so,
homes.
okay.
Yes.
So somebody owns the
Yeah.
whole
Yes.
thing, and, okay,
Yes.
that makes more sense.
It's a rental arrangement.
Yeah, okay. I didn't even put 2 and 2. Okay, now it makes sense, rentals.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
How much would be approved
With the conditions?
with the condition?
I will second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All right. Thank you. And then, do we have any questions or comments on the tracking sheet?
No,
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Excellent. Thank you. We are adjourned.